Here we are, first Brand Together gathering, live conversation of 2026. We've missed you all. We took a little pause in December and we're back. And so if you're not already familiar, well, you are familiar because you signed up, but Community Academy is a business baby that Michelle and I have been nurturing for about 18 months now. We launched 1 year ago, like right now. So I feel like we're like officially 1 years old, although it took us 1 year old, although it took us quite a bit of time to get ready for launch. And we're so thrilled to welcome Keighty Gallagher today. And we're going to introduce you more officially to Keighty in a couple of moments. And before we do, we want to take a quick moment to let you know what's new in terms of happenings over here at Community Academy. So we have learned a lot in 2025, Michelle and I, alongside our incredible cohort participants. We led 3 cohorts last year, each one getting bigger and more engaged, and we learned a ton in the process. And one of the big takeaways that we discovered along the way is that the highest impact and highest value of our offerings always occurred when we were bringing our participants and our community together live, whether it was virtually or in real life, for facilitated learning, dialogue, and discussion. And I think part of the magic there, it's not surprising, is that when we bring like-minded, purpose-driven leaders of brands and businesses and concepts together, there's a lot of magic that comes from the peer sharing and thought partnership and collaboration of ideas. And so we've taken our learnings as inspiration, and we have just launched yesterday, actually, a series, the Human-Led Marketing Series. And this is a workshop series that's designed to help brands move beyond transactional marketing and adopt a community-first approach to growth. We have taken 3 of our favorite pillars of community marketing, and we've designed a workshop experience for each of these pillars. So, and we'll be hosting them both in person here where I am today at & Co offices in downtown Vancouver. If you don't know, now you know. I think it's like, well, it's my favorite co-working space in the city. And we're also going to be live streaming these workshops so that if you're not close to us here on the West Coast, you're more than welcome to hop on virtually to join us. So these 3 workshops are going to be live facilitated, interactive, and we're going to deep dive into each one of these pillars. What else do I need to say about this? Oh, and between now and the end of this month, if you are interested in, so you can join them a la carte. You can choose a workshop that most resonates or is of most interest to you, or you can sign up for all 3. And if you sign up for all 3 before the end of this month, you can save $100 by taking us up on our workshop trio offer. You can learn more about this on our social channels, and we've dedicated a landing page to the Human-Led Marketing Series. And you can navigate there through communityacademy.co/workshops. And Michelle is going to be a dear and pop that into the chat for you so that you can click through when you have a moment. And if you'd like to learn more. What did I miss, Mish?
Sorry, I was too focused on getting that link for you all.
Oh, sorry. I know I really threw you a curveball there.
Here we go. Coming through, coming in hot.
Great. I didn't miss anything that you wanted to add?
I don't think so. Just we're very excited. We can't wait to gather in person and then host some friends virtually as well and do more of a deep dive into these areas we're so passionate about regarding how to, build brands through community building. So we can't wait to
Yeah,
see.
and we're not alone. We've heard loud and clear, and we know that in the age of AI, and there's so many like apps and offerings, and there's so much, technology and AI generated content coming at us. We really see an opportunity to double down on all things human led and human created. And so if you'd like to be a part of learning more about that with us, we would love to see you. And then finally, a quick plug. We have an incredible guest coming up next month, February 12th at 11 a.m., and we'll open registration for our next month's Brand Together conversation series very soon. So follow us on the socials and sign up for our newsletter if you want to be the first to hear about who our next guest will be, a very inspiring woman entrepreneur, Canadian woman entrepreneur. Next, I hand it over to Mish and I stop sharing so that we can introduce Keighty Gallagher.
Amazing. Okay, well, it's a hard one. It's like, how do I introduce this human and have you understand the depth of her greatness? But I'm going to do my best. So, Keighty is one of the world's most influential movers, teachers. She's a leader in every community that she sets her mind to. And she's driven by her love of making movement happen. Um, just by a little show of hands, has anyone encountered Keighty at a special place called Tight Club Athletics? Woo! I'm sure we all yearn for those days. I know I do. But from that to launching Keighty's Café, which I'm going to talk about in a sec, Keighty's work blends movement, culture, and experiences in the most beautiful way. So, Keighty is now focused on launching the personal training experience of her dreams, and it's starting in her own backyard. So, hence Keighty's Cafe. You're going to talk more about that, so I won't spend more time. But she's really focused on creating experiential moments that feel human, whoop whoop, and lasting. So, welcome, Keighty Gallagher. Thank you so much for joining us as our guest. We are so excited to throw a ton of questions your way. And then, of course, as we always do, open it up to this amazing group to jump in with your own questions for Keighty. So, as we go along, just make sure you're noting down any curiosities or questions you have for KG. And then we welcome everyone to just using the chat, just jump on and take a moment to introduce you, just so we can all be building community as we are here together today. So, where are you joining from? Do you have a brand or a business that you're representing? And especially if you're running your own business, just feel free to plug yourself to the moon. And then we'd love if you can just share a community that you feel most a part of as well. So go ahead and pop that in the chat, everyone. And while you do that, we're going to get started with our questions for Keighty.
Now is maybe a good, so I'm going to lead us through rapid fire get to know you questions. And I want to take a moment to acknowledge Keighty for being the inspiration behind a practice that Michelle and I have been nurturing for years. Like me personally, as I've led teams in my corporate life at, Sage Natural Wellness, a brand called Stoco, and even before that at Lululemon. And this is a practice that we've been committed to from the beginning of our community academy adventure together. And it's the check-in question. And I first learned this on the mat at Tight Club, Keighty's gym here in Vancouver. And every class would start with a really simple check-in, and each person participating in the class would take like 30 seconds or less to answer the check-in. And it was one of the most effective ways to create a sense of community, presence, and belonging that I've witnessed. It's super simple and effective, and we do it all the time. So wanted to nod to Keighty that our inspiration first came from her. And that's where our check-in question, Mish, did you already mention it? Forgive me.
I did. It's
Yeah,
all good.
the
Yep.
share a community that you feel most a part of is our check-in question for today to help us get grounded and connected. And I needed to give you that context before I ask you these rapid fire questions. So are you ready, Keighty? Say hi.
I'm ready. Hi. I'm so nervous. I'm shaking.
Nothing nervous about, right, everyone?
I love you, and I am so grateful that you said yes. Keighty transparently was the most difficult Brand Together guest for us to land to date.
I said
Um,
no.
she said no.
You flat out rejected us.
We wouldn't take it for an answer. And we kept working on her, and she's here. And I really want to acknowledge your courage in stepping into this seat of like being masterful at community because you are. And I know you don't like totally embrace that yet, maybe, or, but I'm hoping that this will help you because I think you have so much great wisdom to share. And so we're so glad you eventually said yes. And thank you for willing to be a little nervous and out of your comfort zone with us today.
Thank you. And yeah, we'll see how this goes.
It'll
No,
be
I'm
great.
ready. I'm ready. Let's do this. Rapid fire.
Hey, G, what's one word your friends use to describe you?
Friendly.
Beautiful. What's your favorite thing about living in Ventura, California?
It's small and simple, and there's not a lot of choice, but the choice that I have is like pretty darn good.
Nice. I love that for you. I can't wait to come visit. What's your favorite check-in question?
Um, I have two. The first one is kind of go to. It's what's tight in your life, but I love it when I love giving people the opportunity to like humbly brag. Um, we often, just say like, "Hey, what's up? How is everything? Is everything good?" And then you say, "Yeah, everything's good." But you don't really get anything from them. So, what's tight in your life? Um, I get so much out of that question. And also, the other question I really like is, what is your favorite texture to cut? Or like, what is your favorite vegetable to cut?
I
Oh
love
my gosh, that's such a good question. What's
My
yours?
answer is a tomato with a tomato with a bread knife.
Yeah, serrated knife, a
Ah,
sharp serrated knife. Yeah,
Mm.
love it. Juicy, but also like crisp.
Yeah. And if it's super sharp, it's just the best feeling ever.
Gosh, I love this new checking question inspo. Thank you, KG. Can't wait to use those. What's the music or song you're most likely to train to these days?
It's really kind of all over the place these days, but I have this rule that it can be anything as long as your music kind of matches the energy to your workout. I hate it when I'm starting a class and the warm-up music is like what should be used for the highest energy piece, or it's like it's not the start of the playlist. It's not intentionally the warm-up music. Um, I But if I were to choose, I just love everything, like anything 80s, like synth, post-punk, new wave, new era, that kind of stuff.
Can we follow, sub question, can we follow you on Spotify? Probably.
Yes, I've
That could
got
be fun.
hundreds of playlists on there.
Workout
I
playlist.
know we're not really supposed to be like talking about Spotify, but I'm on it and I've got all my best playlists are there.
I'm coming for
Sweet.
you there, Katie.
Yeah, I can't wait. And then what's your favorite go-to post-workout snack?
Breakfast. Usually these days it's like I'm working out at 6 and I make these nice egg bites. It's kind of boring, but I've also been doing these cool like girl plate snacks with like anchovies and tomatoes. I got a new knife for Christmas. That's why. So I've
Mm.
been cutting a lot of tomatoes and cheese. And so yeah, anything
Girl
that I'm
plate.
hungry for. I listen to what I'm hungry for and I'll go eat it. Doesn't really matter
I
to
love
me.
that. I just pounded a couple of egg bites myself.
I
It's a
was gonna
real
say, I think egg bites are trending at the moment, so you're on
super.
trend, Katie, as usual.
Trending. Cool.
Yeah, you probably created it. Okay, that's our rapid fire. It is over to you, Mish.
Okay, we're gonna get into the really juicy questions now for you, Katie. So, okay, we're gonna take it back. You're launching Tight Club. Can you share your process, if there even was one, around just like building Tight Club with community at the heart? Like, how did you know that this was the way you wanted to build this incredibly special brand that you built?
Like, to be honest, I had no intention of ever starting a business that seemed way too hard and way too scary, and I did not think I was smart enough to do something that crazy. Um, but it really came down to this idea that, like, I was left with such a bad taste in my mouth when I left college and like what athletics and movement and fitness was for me growing up was so positive and safe and empowering. And when I got that taste of what kind of like that fear-based, toxic, like the reason why people our age don't really like fitness or are afraid of fitness or aren't empowered by movement. I actually like got a sense of what that felt like. And so when I moved to Vancouver after going to school, which I went to business school, I was like, I never set out when I started my weekly classes at the field in Andy Livingston Park back in 2012. It was just to try to change the way people felt about fitness. And up until I closed my doors, it's always really been about that feeling. Um, and I had a track coach a long, long time ago named Laurier Primo. I don't know if anyone went to UBC, but he was the UBC, he still is, I think, the UBC track coach there. He had testicular cancer and he didn't think that he'd be able to have kids. And I was a very curious, nosy child. And at like 11 years old, I asked him, I'm like, what is it? I was like, how do you feel about not being able to have kids? Like, and he's like, well, I actually think that like my team is my family and you guys are my kids. And I always held that close to my heart um that Tight Club, even when we were just meeting once a week, was like building a family and I wanted to provide that sense of nourishment to my family as it came to like or in I guess themes of safety and celebration. And over time, those feelings or those intentions kind of became rituals. And the rituals were really what built the community. They created that consistent um, feeling, that safety that people knew what to expect. And that's kind of how the brand was formed. It was really there. I mean, there was no community academy course back then to follow. We started like those rituals, the rituals of building that sense of being celebrated and seen and heard started with like early Facebook days where I took a picture of everyone who came to my classes and then tagged them on Facebook. And that's like how that community, like that's kind of how it helped to grow. Because the people who were coming to my classes weren't your typical gym people. They were servers and bartenders and artists, and they were hungry for a new way to feel about movement. And I knew that there was something there when I kind of led with the feeling, led by the feeling. And then kind of to go deeper into that, those rituals, uh, you guys mentioned the check-in question. The check-in question I learned from one of my favorite teachers, Mr. Rebbit, in grade 11 business class or something like that in high school. And I think it was a way for him to waste like 20 minutes of the hour. But so I stole the checking question from him, but when we used it as a way to kind of we used it as a way to kind of disarm people and their nerves because oftentimes our checking questions were ridiculous and in the early days very inappropriate. And like Michael Kong would ask like, now describe your first French kiss. And every person got their moment. And then also they would act it out. And then afterwards, there'd be times where people are like, oh my God, I made out with that guy too. Or, like, so I'm getting excited about the check-in question. But um, they were, building a community it's also so much more than just being nice to people when they come in. And it's
Just
understanding.
listening on. I'm on a webinar.
all the little touch points that people experience that I think that we'll talk about those touch points later, but starting with the feeling, and then executing that with design choices, eventually events and um, building social media, those all came after. Um, but I think that's how I finished that long-winded answer.
I love that we dug a little bit deeper into that check-in question because it's like, yeah, such a good example of leading with ritual and like I don't know, like I never knew, and you did this very well, Keighty. Like I never knew that like you would sort of set out to create that family vibe. It just like was there and it just felt like that. So it's so I love that you just took it in such a natural way. So cool.
Yes. And what strikes me about what you just shared, Katie, is that back in the Facebook day when you were taking a photo of the class and posting and tagging, I know that you were not doing that because you were thinking like, how can I market my business? You were doing that because I think that the bridge between the Facebook or the Instagram photo and the checking question was really your intentionality was around making people feel seen, heard, and valued. And that photograph was like, you're here. It was like a celebration of showing up for yourself and showing up in community. And the check-in question allowed each person to share and be present. That was the intentionality behind it. It wasn't like, how many times can I post this week to create engagement and grow my social channels? Like that was a nice outcome of it, but it wasn't the
Mm.
reason why you started posting. And please correct me if I'm wrong.
No, totally. And the fitness industry has changed so much
Mhm.
since those days, but I had no intention, like there's a script for promoting a gym, promoting a fitness program. It was for aesthetics. And so I just I found a clear opportunity to tell a different story.
Yeah.
And I was very lucky that it resonated with people
Yeah.
because, um, yeah.
You took a break
Period.
and it paid off
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. Okay, I've got another question for you. Tight Club grew into a deeply loved and widely recognized community, and then eventually you made the intentional decision to close the studio. Looking back at that chapter, what did it teach you about sustainable growth and the cost of building community at scale?
hmm when I look back at that time, I like want to hug myself and just be like, girl, slow down. I kind of, you know how they say that you should never go grocery shopping on an empty stomach? Like, don't go grocery shopping starving. I feel like I was running my business starving and I was saying yes to everything and taking every single opportunity and like it was working. Like I could do it. I didn't sleep that much. I was going for it and I was on fire for a while. And um I think that when when you lead a business from your heart first versus like, okay, I see a business opportunity and I've got the skills to leverage that and to accomplish making money and lots of it. But when you're leading from like truly a heart perspective, I guess, like I was, it it's a lot of responsibility that you end up having to hold emotionally, having to take care of so many people. They're celebrating them, their ups and their downs, and you don't realize, I didn't really realize how much of a toll that took on me. So when I think about kind of what I did wrong from a scaling perspective, I really don't think that my emotional capacity was able to scale like my operations were. And what I really needed were boundaries. And that, as I built teams, and I was building teams, but I just couldn't get out of the trenches. It's like I truly think that that's where I need to be. Um, if anyone's read the book, The Entrepreneur's Dilemma, I think that's what it's called. There's the entrepreneur, the manager, and the help me out, the person who does the thing.
Like the operator, maybe something like that.
It's like
Executor.
it's like the trainer, then there's the manager, and then there's the entrepreneur. I had my legs straddled in all those
All of
worlds,
it.
and even though my probably skill set was as a trainer.
Mm.
Um, so the question of, looking back on that chapter and looking about how to grow something sustainably, I think it's really important to check yourself and make sure that as you're scaling operationally, that you're also able to um, find those boundaries for yourself. The technician, that's it. Yes.
Nailed it, Em.
Yeah. um, because you can't do it all. And I kind of thought that just being a nice, available person, was how I was going to get to the next level. And that availability, is kind of what did me in the long run. And then my other part that I wanted to note on is that like during the pandemic, when we pivoted to online training, I was bringing in my best practices of like in real life community marketing, you could say. Like I was trying to build the rituals and those practices into a whole new arena, this digital first arena where um, there's just no way I could interact with all those people in the way I used to.
Mm.
And and I was too busy and I just didn't put the time in to really figure it out. And I also didn't really care. Like I was so burnt out at that point that I
Mm.
just kind of let it all go. And that's where, when I think about a great analogy that I use, is that Tight Club was used to be this like beautiful little um house party, you could say. And Elisa, who's on the call, was very much a part of it in those early days when it was run out of my garage, um, from my coach house. That was like the intimate little dinner party. And by the end, it was this like rockin' college party that I kind of had to shut down
Mm.
because I couldn't really control it.
Call the cops on.
Call the
Love.
cops.
Yeah.
I did freeze for just a hot second there, but I'm hoping I'm not throwing you for too much of a loop here, Katie, because I do, based on like this conversation about like, okay, you made this intentional decision, you've learned all this about like how you might do things differently. So now, like you've actually now from where you sit and like based on a lot of things that have occurred in your life, like you've made a really intentional decision to like dial things down and like but still be able to stay like really deeply connected to community and committed to like your deep down values and why.
Mm.
So do you like now that you've gone through that, now that you did burn yourself out and you've like had the chance to slow down, what would be the main advice that you'd want to give to founders, fellow founders, those that are in these like marketing roles that are really intense, to be able to accomplish the goal, which is building these meaningful communities, but while also like preserving yourself?
Yeah. Well, still learning.
Mm.
Still learning. But I really like looking back on that time, like I said, I was ripping through life super hungry, taking everything I could get. I think what something that I would do differently is, and what I'm practicing now, is to live, whether it's by the season or by cycles, and understanding that in nature takes breaks, and nature uses time, um, to rest and replenish itself so that at other parts of its cycle, it can blast off and it can be extremely productive. And there's this awesome book that I read a few years ago called The Four Season Solution. And that, I mean, it's not a business book or anything. It talks about how we are constantly living in a never-ending state of summer, like the endless summer, where our days are long and we're partying, we're we're living our life as big as we can because the days are long and the sun's out. And but that doesn't really ever stop. And so I would say you don't have to do it all always at once. And when you're looking at like your social media um, channels, you don't have to be everywhere. Um, when you're thinking about planning out your year for events, you don't have to plan for events every single month or whatever it is that you were doing in the summer and it worked. There are times to chill and times to party. And that would be my super official um,
Answer.
advice.
I think we need to send Keighty to talk to every executive team out there for those who work in corporate businesses and just like ground them in this concept of like
Book club.
move with move with nature's patterns and actually slow down here and there so that we can, yeah, I love that. I love seeing right now the conversation around like wintering and
Mm.
not feeling the pressure to take January as the time where we set goals because it's like not the right time. So I love that. That's what you made me think of, Keighty.
I love it. The four season solution. Googling now and we'll drop the link when I have a moment. I love that. And it's such great advice. I want to move on. You've described yourself, Keighty, as a hospitality nerd, which I love. I'm also obsessed with the relationship between hospitality, guest experience, community, and brand. How does a hospitality mindset change the way brands should think about community marketing, customer experience, and especially in digital first environments?
Yeah. Um, a couple of years ago, I read this awesome book again. I talk, I sound like I read one or
So
two
much
books a year.
reading, Keighty.
So much reading. No, these are the only books I've read. Just kidding. Well, this book I'm talking about, it's called Unreasonable Hospitality.
Yes.
And I loved it so much because especially I can't speak personally because I've never really worked in a product-based business, but for so many businesses out there, they are competing for they are competing with their products essentially. And um I mean, aside from like changing colors or changing functions or whatever, um the hospitality aspect is really such an important and impactful um, way to differentiate a product or a service or an experience. And that's what this book was um, talking about using, well, we're just another pretty good restaurant in New York. I think it was New York City.
Yeah.
Um, how do we get that star? How do we get that Michelin star and make the top 100 or yeah, top 100 list? And that's where they decided, no, we're not going, it's not about sourcing the best product. We're already doing that. How can we level up? And they put their hospitality hats on and started thinking about how can we create exceptional, memorable experiences for our guests and leave them feeling not only full, but changed in a way, whether it's presenting them with that surprise and delight or putting that extra little bit of effort to do a little research on why they're here, why they're sitting with us today, really understanding the audience. I think that businesses or companies, whatever, can get so much more out of their marketing. Um, I think that's my answer to that. And I think that like maybe some examples of that could be um, looking at those touch points that you have available to you. So looking at like when, how do you greet the person coming into your experience, whether it's your store, your class, your online store, how are they greeted? How are they onboarded? Um, how how do they leave? Um, and and I think that that's when those little touch points are considered, I think those are the, you know, those special hospitality pieces that help people remember the experience more and have it feel just a little bit more like it's coming from a human.
Mm.
It's so good, Katie. Okay, I do not want to throw our friends at Lululemon under the bus, but I walked in there the other day and
And you're going to, and I might
well,
too. No,
I
I'm just
mean,
kidding.
listen here, okay? I walk in and there is someone stationed at the front, right? That is her job. She is there. She is like essentially there to greet and has this opportunity to like make you feel like you're seen when you walk in the door. And she just said nothing, did nothing. Like it was literally like she was just doing whatever she was doing and it's fine. But original intent of having a role there was like it was actually called, funnily enough, the director of first impressions, right? So
Cute.
you have this person who's or the Dofi for short. And it like that in and of itself, just having someone who's like their job is so important. They are assigned to be the director of first impressions, their whole job is to like make you feel like a celebrity when you walk in the door and like you're seen, you're valued. And I was like, wah wah, like that is clearly just like been it's fallen through the cracks over the years. And like I get it because that's what happens when businesses, you know, grow and scale immensely. But I love that you like took us back to that and those touch points, Katie, are so key. And like they can honestly be anything, right? Like you could sit down as a business owner and like just spend 20 minutes brainstorming. What are some touch points that like would fall under the category of unreasonable hospitality?
Mm.
And I'm sure you'd, yeah, like it would be worth your time to do that. Wow, it's you, right, Krista?
Yeah, and I think the distinction that you're making here that is important for us to think about as brand and business leaders is like, that person still get like the habit and the original intent is partly still there because there's still a dedicated human scheduled to that position throughout the whole day. And that's a lot of investment of resources when you times that across 500 stores. So that person better be the weather maker because when you think about scalability, like if they're not, it's a gigantic leak to the profitability model of the business, right? And so the distinction you're making, I think, is like the checkbox versus the original intent. And like, how do we check for, you know, how do we test for whether original intent is still trained, understood, nurtured, nourished as we scale? I think it's such a good real life
Mm.
example of how it can get lost, but feel like it's still happening because the schedule is still including that role. Very different.
It all of a sudden becomes a bit performative, right?
Totally.
Which, by the way, I'm going to throw that question to you, Katie. So, like, there are like community has become a buzzword, and there are a lot of brands out there that are like doing community, right? But it is like it can like I don't know, it runs the risk of feeling very performative if there's not like that deeper intention and connection back to the why of the business, right? So like what do you think it would take? Let's say there is a brand out there that is like too totally stuck in this performative community cycle. Like what does it take to shift to like genuinely human-led community.
Mhm. Yeah, you kind of know when it's performative when you leave without a feeling. When you leave just being like, huh, that I guess looked pretty or that looked fancy or whatever. But it's like you know it's performative when you feel something, and I think that that really comes down to does this business, are they clear with their values? Are they clear with their vision that's more than just business goals? Like, is there a human side to their why and how, and checking themselves, like, was that aligned with the intention of this experience? Um, because so often, um, you know, for a company to say like kind of what you said, on paper, we have employed this person to do this job, but when they haven't done the work to onboard them with their community guidelines, their vision, and found the right people, I think the best businesses out there are the ones that truly know and understand their audiences the best. And that means getting in there, doing the grassroots work, and listening, um, and putting in the work to understand who your true advocates and ambassadors really are. I think when you're able to step back and let these specific groups kind of not manage, but you give up the power so that they can produce the experiences, that's when you can get sometimes the best experiences.
You
Um,
actually have experience being that ambassador, right? At like different brands, right? So like you're the coveted, like you're the athlete, you're the community connector. So like you are naturally like a magnet for others, and no wonder brands have flocked to you to work with you. But have you had like these, differentiated experiences where where you could tell that a brand just like didn't give you the grounding and didn't set you up to be like an effective ambassador? And then maybe on the other side.
for sure. I got to experience Lululemon when, being an ambassador for Lululemon at the peak of ambassadorships, when I really did feel like Lululemon um, cared about their grassroots communities. And I had really incredible support, especially when I was working with the lab, back when the lab was on Broadway. And Jean Okada was there. Um, an example of that, I didn't even have a gym. I didn't even have actually, I guess we were
What a
doing,
park.
yeah, we were in a park, and um and Jean from the head designer at the lab um saw something, and she was like, "Look, I love what you're doing. I believe in you. Um, let's design a clothing line. Let's shoot a video. She's like, I want to utilize Lululemon, the brand, to help you grow into whatever you want to do." And I had all these amazing resources to work with, and being on my end, getting to utilize that, that was like it, the best experience that someone like me could ever have. And yes, it was Lululemon. Yes, it was promoted by a brand, but it really what it Lululemon stepped back to let me do what I needed to do. And then when I was, that was the first push. It was so successful. There was a lineup the day after the party when we launched the clothing line out the door. Um, it was just such a surreal experience. This is back in 2013. The same day I crossed the street to go to the Nike store to buy a new pair of running shoes. And like the people tr selling my shoes, they have no idea.
Who you are.
Well, okay, that sounded super egotistic, but
No.
I was like, yes. So like, I like to do like strength training and hit. And they're like, oh, where do you do that? I'm like, oh, I don't know, like my at Tight Club or Ride Cycle Club. Like I was like throwing out local names, and they're like, huh? This is across the street from Lululemon. So it it really does make a difference when you can tell when the company's um, intentions are human led, because then that leads into uh, um, that leads into their community marketing experiences, which I greatly valued. Yeah.
That was such an incredible mic drop. And I feel moved like to my core, and probably because of my intimate firsthand experience with the brand you are speaking of. But like you're reminding me of like how simple and how effective it can be to actually prioritize being in the community and creating genuine relationships with the people that you design your product or experience for. It's like you just gave us like night and day. Um, and I got
Hmm.
a really visceral sensation from that. Thank you.
Hmm. You're so welcome.
That I think I was going to ask you another question, but I'd rather hear from our friends on who've taken the time to join us today. I know some of you might be multitasking, but the rest of our time is open forum for any questions, insights, curiosities, reflections. Is there anything anyone would like to share or ask Keighty?
You can feel free to just hop off mute or pop a question in the chat.
Hi, I'm Shell. I'll ask a question. Thanks so
Hey,
much for sharing all of that, Keighty. It's so nice to hear your story. I'm familiar with Tight Club. I'm from Vancouver and currently live here now. So I don't know if this is a specific question, but I can get there. I really loved what you said about creating more hospitality, and I want to read that book too, Unreasonable Hospitality, because I'm a digital service provider. So I provide social media marketing services. And I've really just started this year, like very recently, building my own community publicly. So I've been behind the scenes for so many years and have sort of created mini communities with people sort of in my industry. But now that I'm trying to build more of a personal brand, I'm trying to sort of build community more publicly. And I'm finding it really great to sort of join these webinars. But I don't know if there's any like more specific examples of how to do that effectively. And I really resonate with sort of like being very heart-centered and very emotion-led personally. And so I want to build community not in a performative way at all, but also being on social media, it's kind of like if I come across a lot of like performative community in my work. So I don't know if that sort of makes sense, but that's where I am. And um, yeah, interested to hear your thoughts if you have any.
totally. I am following, and I think it can be so you can feel so alone when you're working and thriving online, to actually make those real connections. I think that's a super valid question. So I find that, I mean, my personal success is just from being my emotional and just being me. And I find that some of the most impactful experiences that I have, that I can remember, or at least memorable experiences, not that these aren't experience I've led, these are ones that I've experienced, are the ones that have nothing to do with your product or your service. It really is about your interests and what light you up. Um, Something like really relevant, just where I'm at here. My friend Corgan, who's on this call, Corgan and I like to go to this awesome wine bar in town called Buddy's. And Buddy's is a newish business. Alexis sells wine, but I've never seen her bar more packed than when she did. a bake sale to um, raise money for victims of ICE. Like there was a line fucking around the block. Or moments where people are rallying to raise money to help a family whose kids have leukemia. Like they're like stepping away from what your um, product or service is like the first thing I would recommend doing, and stepping towards something that you actually find interesting. Um, even the gym that I used to work at here in Ventura, it's called Boss Fitness. We tried doing like BossFit face or Instagram like community chats where it was like, let's talk about the program. But then we started something, it was just called Girl Dinner. And I don't even go to this gym anymore. And it's just like chatting about like honestly anything from who's got the best like fridge mechanic to like tell me what the best laser facial list is. Like it's that's an example of something that's like has nothing to do with the gym, but it brings those community members together in a very relevant, very fun, non-businessy, non-performative way. It was that was pretty incredible to see that grow.
Keighty, I love that so much. I was thinking about, well, Krista, you and I had the pleasure of attending. It was called like a founders dinner, and like how special did we feel to be invited? But really, it was hosted by this magical woman who just like in and of herself is, she's just like an incredible being. So to me, I'm like, okay, you invited us. She hosted it at her house, which felt very intimate and almost like putting herself out there on the line, right?
Mhm.
Inviting strangers into her home, like providing a dinner. And like in honestly, she really didn't like, at least not in any sort of like way that felt like icky. Really, she didn't talk much about her offerings, her work, what she does. Like we, as the attendees, ended up, pushing her and saying, "Hey, like Heather, can you tell us more about this program that you're offering or whatever?" Like, and I think that would probably naturally happen. Um, if you're like putting yourself out there, you're gathering, you're like putting yourself out there to gather people. You're creating the container, and then you just like allow things to unfold as they will, and the community feeling to ignite. Um, and then next thing you know, you've got those people like who know who you are. You're the person who like is responsible for gathering this amazing group of people together, and then they come to you asking, "Well, what do you actually do? Like, what are you about?" So I don't know. Yeah, scared me.
You're really nodding to the spirit of like reciprocity that I think is deeply ingrained in humans. Like Heather was genuinely giving without expectation, I believe. And I think she did it from a place of knowing she's a coach and she knows that women entrepreneurs can feel lonely and isolated. And she thought, how can I support that? And creating a small intimate dinner for seven of us to gather around her dining room table with like her kids' backpacks and coats like hanging at the front door was like such a like not to say it didn't take something, but like it was such a simple way for her to create the conditions for us to connect and relate to each other as women entrepreneurs and simple but so effective. Mhm. I love that invitation, Keighty, in the chat. Any last questions or thoughts? We have a couple minutes left.
I have one.
Please.
And if this is too big of a question, no worries. But I'm just curious if you had unlimited funding, no limits to your creativity and use of your skills, what would you do? Where would you direct it?
Ugh, I think you've asked me this before, Corgan. In terms of Katie's Cafe or
Not necessarily.
ooh, um, okay, great question. I would This question makes me want to say things like I would start a foundation and do all these like big things, but my gut says I just want to be small and tiny and like build a tiny little world for myself to exist in with my friends and family and just be small and nobody and but be really good at being me in this little igloo I've created or this little communal community um, where I get to hang out with really nice, good people and I get to pursue things that I want to do
The
and help
money takes
people.
the worry out
Ugh.
of it, right? You're like, I don't need to worry about making the money. I just want to do this. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I would have like a I would maybe I'd like want to learn more about community like city planning, community planning, but very small, small, small. And yeah, I'm gonna keep thinking about this question,
I
Corgan.
actually love that you answered that way because it's speaking to how we all have like this pressure coming from somewhere to do something gigantic
Yeah,
when maybe
Yeah.
we actually don't want to.
yeah,
Mhm.
What
fuck
is
that.
that?
Katie revealed her should in answering that question and
You're
then went,
looking good. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, so
That
For
good.
was
sure.
such a good question, Corrigan. I'm obsessed with you. Thank you for knowing what the right question was to ask. And Katie, the challenge I have for you is like, could you sit with that question? And I don't know if it's meditate or journal or, but could you allow the inquiry of that question to stay with you for a few days or a week or more and
And everyone
see
else
what
as
comes
well
up?
on the call, right? That can be
Yeah.
all of our homework.
That could be our wrap-up question, our check-out question.
Yeah, sadly, we don't have enough time to check out, so you'll have to do it spiritually. But what would you do if you had unlimited resources, limitless funding, and no obstacles? I think it's such a great question for all of us to sit with and consider. Thank you, Corgan, for showing up and bringing that wisdom. And then Keighty Gallagher, you are one in a million. I so deeply miss what you created here in Vancouver. Nobody has, in my humble opinion, come anywhere close to recreating the gap that you have left behind here when it comes to like group fitness and personal training in like group person. That's what I want to say is like it was felt like personal training in a group. We're so grateful that you were willing to step out of your comfort zone and share with us today. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Katie, and thank you, everyone. We hope
Thank
to
you
see
so
you
much.
next month.
See you
Thank you,
February
everyone.
12th.
Thank
Bye,
Bye.
Love
you.
you
Katie.
all. Thank you so much. That was so scary. I have hives.
You did it.
Okay.
Done.
I have my
And you can
heated blanket on.
the replay will be live shortly on our YouTube channel.
If anyone wants to get in touch with me, I'm around. I would love to chat. If I could throw out one more book, it is The Art of Gathering by Priya
Yeah.
Parker. I really wanted to talk about that. But yeah, read that book if you are curious about gathering more intentionally and memorably. That's it.
Yeah.
Have
That's
it.
what
I'm
I've got
gonna
now.
reread it. Love
I'm
that.
obsessed that we have the same favorite book list, but we'll include all of these links in our show notes when we post on YouTube. Thank you so much, Katie, for sharing so many great resources today.